a sensational Seminole County murder mystery, and a Daybell trial update. We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more on this episode of Charlie Crimebuster. Yep, it's what some people are calling, or they're calling it the fastest minutes in podcasting.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the individuals interviewed and participating in this show, and do not represent those of Charlie Crimebuster nor Peacemaker Network. All individuals described or mentioned in the podcast should be considered innocent until found guilty in a court of law. This podcast contains subject matter such as violence and graphic descriptions which may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Well, hello and welcome to this edition of Charlie Crimebuster. Sure glad to have you aboard the Charlie Crime train today as we bring you true life crime. And boy, what a sensational carjacking and murder in Seminole County, Florida. Plus, we are going to update you on that Chad Daybell case as well. But first, I'd like to take an opportunity to welcome any of our new listeners today. We get new listeners every week, and as I say often, the thousands of downloads, well, it humbles us, and we're honored to have you as a part of the Charlie Crimebuster crime family. By the way, if you'd like to reach out with a shout-out, you can reach me, charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. That's charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support the program, well, you can go right over there to peacemakernetwork.com, peacemakernetwork.com. There you can learn how we help, well, the men and women who run toward danger, sit away from danger. You can be a part of that support system. You can not only help the podcasts, but you can also help these brave men and women. I'm talking about law enforcement, first responders, and the brave men and women of military. You can read all about that at peacemakernetwork.com. If you'd like to get caught up on any of the episodes, well, go on over to our website, charliecrimebuster.com, charliecrimebuster.com. Hey, if you'd like to reach out with a shout-out, charliecrimebuster@gmail.com, you can make suggestions about some of the episodes you'd like to see us do. Or perhaps you can ask questions. As we say, you can also, well, you can lodge objections. You can disagree. It is a safe spot. Well, getting those housekeeping chores out of the way, let's get right into today's focus. Now imagine this. You're in your vehicle, driving in a beautiful area here in Central Florida. There are nice homes all around you, beautiful landscape lawns. And then you come up to a red light, and you see something happen that you will never, ever forget. And your cell phone catches it in real time. Well, my friend, on April the 11th this year, that's exactly what happened. It happened at a red light at East Lake Drive in Seminole County. A motorist watches as a man gets out of his ride, dressed head to toe in black, has a mask on with an AK-15 rifle. He points that rifle at the driver's side door of Catherine Agusvilla. It was a white Dodge Durango. He then opens the rear driver's side door, gets into that SUV. Well, then the vehicle makes a U-turn. And the motorist will learn that that victim in that SUV, well, sadly, will be found shot to death inside her burning Durango at a construction site in Osceola County. And that, my friend, is exactly what happened. In fact, if you'd like to see this video, go to charliecrimebuster.com, charliecrimebuster.com, and you can literally see the video where this carjacking took place. And folks, I got to tell you, this sensational Seminole County carjacking, well, it has caught the attention of true crime fans all over the world. And for about 3 weeks now, well, there are even more questions on the minds of many who are now following this case. And, my friend, there are more twists and turns, as we often say, here on Charlie Crimebuster, more twists and turns than a Disney roller coaster. Yep, it involves mystery, an additional murder, and even the arrest of an Orange County deputy sheriff. Yes, it has the earmark. Yep, has the earmark of drugs, money, and murder. And leading this investigation, at least at the beginning of it, is Seminole County Sheriff Dennis Lemma. Oh, by the way, he kept the community updated, often appeared in media events, news conferences, and he would ask the community for any information they could provide. You know, we're now like that in our country, aren't we? It's the good guys against the bad guys, working together to put the bad guys away. Well, this case, my friend, took momentum. Yep, momentum when it was discovered that a green 2002 Acura that was driven by the carjackers, well, that was actually the only such make and model of that color in the whole state of Florida. Well, as this investigation took legs, well, drugs were found. Even bricks of cocaine found in a lamp, all shipped from Puerto Rico right here to Central Florida. People of interest were identified. People were detained. Some were arrested on drug-related charges. And all of them somehow connected to this sensational Seminole County carjacking murder. Now, one of the ways to get your arms around the case, well, it's to learn about the people that are associated with the case. And we're going to tell you on this episode how they found the alleged carjackers and of the people, all the people involved, including a deputy, a barber, a nail stylist, a mother, a drug dealer, and a tow truck driver, all tied to this case. Now, we're going to get to that in a moment, but right now it is time for what we call our Crazy Crook Story of the Week. You see, each week we take time to share with you a crazy crook story. Well, we say to kind of lighten the load of those things that we cover. So, my friend, here today is our Crazy Crook Story. Now, my friend, we love our oranges here in Florida. We are sometimes called the orange juice capital of the world. At least that's what we like to think here in Central Florida. But our Crazy Crook Story of the day, well, he may have taken the love of orange juice to a new level. Yep, he's a thief from Portland, Oregon. And, by the way, it appeared that he executed the perfect robbery. Well, almost perfect. Now, he meticulously went throughout every inch of the house that he was burglarizing. He was opening all the drawers, using gloves to cover his fingerprints, and he was very diligent about stealing everything of value he could find, all at the same time without leaving fingerprints. He had planned the break-in at the right time when nobody was home, even timed how much time it would take him to get in and out. Yes, it was almost the perfect robbery. But if you've listened to us before, you know that I've shared that when I was investigating home break-ins, I would usually ask the victims a very unusual question. I would ask them to open their refrigerator, because time after time, these crazy crooks, they could not keep from opening the fridge and helping themselves. Well, it appears that our crazy crook from Portland, Oregon, well, he got thirsty, and he could not help himself. So he grabbed a container of orange juice, orange juice, that he found in the refrigerator, took a gulp directly from it, and left it in the sink. Yep, you guessed it. That container, it was sent straight to the DNA testing unit in the Oregon crime lab. And then that was directed right back to the thief, and he was nabbed. So this crazy crook, who just had to have his orange juice, well, he was arrested, placed into the slammer. Well, hopefully for his sake. Hope they served orange juice. Well, anyway, my friend, this crazy crook who loved orange juice so much that he got caught. He is indeed Charlie Crimebuster's Crazy Crook of the Week. Now, the best way to get you caught up on the story is to cover the people that are involved. And I'd like to start by telling you a little bit about the victim in this case. This young lady that was carjacked was Catherine Agavias, just 31 years of age, with a bright smile, who, by the way, had left her native Dominion Republic 5 years ago. And she was married to a barber, Majo, and he operated a barber shop in Florida City. Now, Majo, who operated this barber shop in Florida City, of course, got concerned about the welfare of his wife. You're going to hear about that a little later. Now, Catherine, she had worked as a licensed nail tech. That's back in 2022. However, what really stands out to me in researching this particular victim was that she was indeed a loving mother. A loving mother who spoke of her daughter. We find these words from a Facebook post. She said, quote, "I have done something good in my life to deserve having a daughter like you. I love you with all my heart, my soul, with the smallest cell that can exist inside me. Only you have awakened in me the feelings and emotions that I didn't know existed." Now, we're not going to tell you the name of the daughter because that's just not right. But here is a young lady who was a mother who loved her children. It is so sad to see good people get tied up in bad things, because now it's very apparent in the investigation that she, as well as others, were swept up in an alleged drug smuggling plot. And the most telling statement, it came from her brother, who told officials that she was coming to Central Florida, all the way from Homestead, Florida. She was coming from Homestead to Central Florida to bring money and, quote, get this, other stuff to someone. Well, my friend, that's just code for money and drugs. She was bringing that to a guy here in Central Florida. And that guy, by the way, was the last person to talk to her before she was carjacked. That guy has been tied to drug dealing right here in Central Florida. He goes by the name of Gavani. And he and his girlfriend has been arrested on charges related to drug dealing. Now, perhaps this was the reason why, when she was followed by these thugs, she did not call 911, but she called her husband. Kind of hard to call 911 when you have drugs and money in the vehicle, don't you think? But because of this tie to drugs, somehow getting tied in with this kind of a crowd, no doubt, because of that, this loving mother is murdered, and her body, with a gracious smile, is left burning in her torch vehicle. Well, now we know that investigators have also arrested 2 alleged carjackers. That break came when authorities were able to connect the carjacker car to 28-year-old Jordanish Torres Garcia, also known as Jordan. He is accused of being the masked carjacker. By the way, that same car, that green Acura, that same car, well, it was connected to the killing of a tow truck driver back in March. Also, the same type of ammo, somewhat unusual. Usually there's 9mm shells left, or 40 caliber, but this was 10mm shells. 10mm shells found at both the murder of the tow truck driver in March and the murder of Catherine on April the 11th. Now, they were also able to locate the driver of the carjacker. That was located because he was tied to another vehicle, a red vehicle, that was seen coming to pick up the carjacker, and they were witness to wiping down the green Acura, getting rid of the fingerprints, etc. His name was Kevin Omar. He is also known as Kivo. So we have these 2 carjackers, street names Jordan and Kivo. as the alleged perps of this terrible carjacking murder. Now, Kivo is the suspect who was behind the wheel of the Acura during this murder ambush, while Jordan, he was the guy with the rifle seen in the video. Again, let me remind you, you can see this video for yourself. It's posted on our website. Go to charliecrimebuster.com and you can see this bold carjacking in daylight. Now, as you look to these guys, you're going to find that these are very dangerous people. They've been brutal and violent in the past. Even one of them, well, Kivo, he's connected to a gang, a violent gang that deals with drugs. It's called the Sixes. It's a gang here in Orlando. Now, he has been in surveillance prior to this, and he was well known to investigators. But there are still some other questions that still perplexes investigators. And they are questions that you and I will want to see the answers to. Now, it is apparent that these activities were tied to the drug underworld. And we're going to talk all about those questions. And we're going to also update you on the trial of Chad Daybell. And we're going to tell you how a police officer also got arrested and how that's tied to this case. We're going to do that in a moment, but now it's time for you to hear some news you can use. Take it away, James.
Military personnel are more likely to make a suicide attempt or die by suicide if they are experiencing intense emotional pain. This could include depression and trauma, such as post-traumatic stress. Risk for suicide increases when military personnel experience both depression and post-traumatic stress together. They experience things like hopelessness or perceived burdensomeness, self-hatred, unbearability, guilt, and even some disconnectedness. They'll say things like this: things will never going to change, it's always going to be the same. Or, you all would be better off without me. Or comments like this: I'm worthless and there's nothing good about me. Or even, this is terrible, I just can't take it anymore. Or, it's all my fault. And then this one: no one values me or cares about me. You see that last one? No one values me or cares about me. This is what Peacemaker Network is all about. We do care. We do value our first responders, law enforcement personnel, and military, and this is why we shine our light on PTSD and suicide awareness. We need our heroes healthy, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Join the Peacemaker Network today. PeacemakerNetwork.com.
Thank you, James. Now, while it is apparent to me that cops have the right guys that did this deadly carjacking, well, Jordan, he even outright confessed to it, according to a complaint that was filed. He also told FBI agents that a half an hour before the kidnapping, that he had met someone near the area of Lake Drive here in Seminole County who gave him the rifle and gave him $1,500, $1,500, I should say, to kidnap Catherine and to bring her to another individual. Sad, isn't it? That for a measly $1,500, you can hire somebody to kidnap somebody. So the question is, do authorities believe Jordan? And if so, who was that person that hired him? And if so, who was actually responsible for killing Catherine? Was it one of these two perps, or was there someone else involved? And why? Why and how was that same green Acura tied to the killing of a tow truck driver back in March? How did that happen, and why did that happen? There are still questions. And just how involved was Catherine's husband, Miguel, in this so-called drug deal gone wrong? Was he simply using his wife as a mule to deliver drugs and money? And if so, is this all tied to Puerto Rico? Or is it even tied maybe to a drug cartel? Oh, still lots of questions. Gangs, drugs, murder, all linked together. But one question I can answer for you today is how an Orange County deputy is tied to this case. He was actually, by the way, the very first arrest in the case. His name, Francisco Estrella. He actually received a call after Catherine was carjacked. And it is a result of what he did after he got that call that landed him, the deputy himself, in jail. And now he's facing 5 felonies because of it. He went on to say in a news conference that the incident occurred, he said, I believe between 4 and 5 p.m. That's what Estrella told Channel 9 during an exclusive sit-down interview on Tuesday. However, he didn't get a phone call until about 10 p.m. that night. That was after that happened. He said that was when the deceased brother reached out. Catherine's brother called him. And Catherine's brother had connections with Estrella's wife. All he told me was that his sister had gone missing. That's what Deputy Estrella said. They had carjacked her vehicle. He really didn't know much up to that point. He just wanted some answers. He just needed help trying to locate her. So he asked me if I could do anything for him. That's what the Deputy Estrella is telling people. Now, the investigators tell us that Estrella, he called the Seminole County detectives and actually misintroduced himself as another detective from Orange County. But see, he wasn't a detective from Orange County. He was a patrol officer. He even said he was a cousin, all so he could get details from the Seminole County detective working the case. He told that detective that he was a detective of Orange County. He lied about that. Said there was allegedly some ties between the deputy's wife's family and, of course, Catherine's family. He said he was just trying to help. That's what he tells others in the news conference. However, he ended up getting involved in obstruction and deception, and that landed the deputy in jail. Now, there's absolutely no evidence released that this deputy was doing anything other than attempting to get information for the brother of Catherine and maybe the husband that at the time had gone missing. Yet there are still questions in others' minds. Why did he lie to get that information? Well, I guess I'll let you be the judge of that. I will say, though, that law enforcement looks good in this investigation. They moved quickly, got violent men off the street. They cooperated with each other's agencies. Keep in mind, this investigation now includes city and county police, the DEA, the FBI, federal marshals, even investigators of the Postal Service. It reaches across the state and even across the ocean. Yep, it's a story fit for true crime drama. It's a blockbuster movie. And, of course, several spin-off Lifetime movies. And that has all come to the attention over 3 weeks right here in Central Florida. And by the way, there's something else that comes to our attention. That's the ongoing trial of Chad Daybell. And we're going to get you caught up on that in just a brief moment. So now finally, after 4 more years, Chad Daybell, he's on trial for a triple murder. And we're now around 15 days in the Chad Daybell trial. And there have been lots of people taking the stand, including Chad's mother and sister-in-law. Now, it is surprising to some that a prosecutor will use a man's own family to testify against their loved one. Basically, it just underlined the fact that Chad and Lori were lying about the children, which proved they had something to cover up. Which we all know now, it was the murder of little JJ and Tylee. Even his own family, they were aware that something was amiss in this terrible tragedy of this doomsday couple, and we saw that. Now, in reviewing the trial, standing out to me up to this point in the trial are 2 things. Number 1, other than the murders, there was actually attempted murders. Yep, attempted murders. And number 2, how did Tammy, Chad Daybell's wife, really die? It was brought out in court proceedings and is now apparent to those in court that Alex Cox was Chad and Lori's spiritual hitman. he had attempted to shoot and kill both Lori's nephew, Bardrow, and Chad's wife, Tammy. It should not be surprising, because after all, he had used a gun to shoot and kill Lori's husband, Charles Vallow. That was all the time that she and Chad were having an affair, both of them married to another. Well, good thing for Boudreaux that Alex, well, he was not so good of a shot. Bullet just missed his head. And the weapon, well, it malfunctioned when he attempted to shoot Tammy. Lucky for Boudreaux that he escaped the near-death experience. But Tammy, sadly, was not as fortunate in life. Now, we can see from the court proceedings how Chad wanted to hurry along the funeral service, not do an autopsy. Well, that in itself kind of shows me a consciousness of guilt in the circumstance, don't you think? So we see the first quarters that responded to the scene, well, they were not as qualified and experienced as those who face murder often in such investigations. That was very apparent in their testimony. So, additional information had come to the authorities, and that led them to take another look at Tammy's death. And they then realized that it may not have been a natural death, as these inexperienced coroners ruled. So they exhumed the body and had it looked at from an experienced forensic medical examiner. And that experienced forensic medical examiner, he could tell us how Tammy really died. And he did. The forensic medical examiner on the stand. His name? Dr. Eric Christensen. He was the former chief medical examiner in Utah. He told the jury, now get this, that bruising on Tammy's arms happened minutes to hours before she died of asphyxia, and the manner was determined to be a homicide. He also told the court that Tammy could have been restrained by someone while another person suffocated her. Now, my friend, if the jury believes that, well, that could have put the final nail in the coffin for the gravedigger Chad Daybell. Literally, he is facing the death penalty. You see, my friend, I believe it's proven that Chad was involved in the deaths of the children. While maybe he did not necessarily do the killing, well, he manipulated their spiritual hitman to do the dirty work, even by giving him a special blessing for his service. That was brought out in the trial. Now, I believe that this witness can link Chad directly to the death of Tammy in their home, the medical examiner, that is. And that, by the way, was just days after Alex Cox had allegedly attempted to shoot Tammy in her driveway at home. Now, getting rid of both of their spouses, well, that would, in their mind, give them money and freedom to be together and continue this crazy alternate reality that did give them sex, money, and power. So, my friend, coming up in this trial, we have the defense to put on their case. And it will be interesting to see how Attorney Pryor sets up the defense and tells his story about Chad Daybell. Hey, speaking of coming up, every Tuesday, we are producing a YouTube production where we talk about the cases we cover on our podcast, just like this one. We will discuss this podcast that you're hearing right now. And you can always get a lot more information when you go to Charlie's True Crime Talk on YouTube. You can reach the YouTube channel by going to YouTube at charliecrimebuster.com, or you can just click the link in our show notes. We'll make it easy for you. Or you can go to charliecrimebuster.com on the website. This will allow us to share even more information with you. I'm very excited about that. So there you have it, my friend. The sensational carjacking murder in Seminole County, and an update on the Chad Daybell trial case. So until next time, this is Charlie Crimebuster reminding you, be safe, be alert, For the life you save, it may be your very own.
You have been listening to Charlie Crimebuster. You can find additional podcasts at charliecrimebuster.com. You can also support our first responders, military, and law enforcement communities at peacemakernetwork.com. Or subscribe to our YouTube channel using tag @CharlieCrimebuster. Even visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/CharlieCrimebuster. Or if you would like to make suggestions for future podcasts, please send your ideas to charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. That's charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope that you will join us next week for another exciting crime story with Charlie Crimebuster.